Good evening. I'm Susan Drummond, City of Pasco hearing examiner. Today is Wednesday, May 12th, 2021, 6 p.m. We have 5 items on this evening's agenda, but before I go through the order of procedure, I think the first agenda item that was just a placeholder and we don't need that. This is the Elsa Fortify Holdings single room occupancy housing conversion. I see that counsel for both the applicant and the city are online, so I'll just ask them. I assume this was just a placeholder. The decision's issued on this and there's nothing for me to address, but am I missing something on that?
You are correct, Madam Examiner. In fact, we're going to be adjusting the schedule today a little bit. What used to be item E, the rezone for pro-may construction, is going to be moved up to position A on our agenda.
Okay, and that's combined with the preliminary plat because it's the same property.
Exactly.
And the rezone have to go first, right, for the plat to go. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Mr. Fickus, I see you there. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, Madam Examiner. Like I said, I didn't realize it was continued. I think we're like you. I was surprised to get that notification. I assume that you almost have your decision ready to be issued relatively shortly.
Yeah, I actually, it issued yesterday, so
Did I get it?
yeah, you should have received it by now, but if not, I'm sure the city will get it to you right away.
That would be great. Jeff, if you're listening, or Rick, send it to me. I did not receive it, although I had some email difficulties yesterday. Thank you.
We'll
I'll go ahead and email it to you right now.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that may have just been a placeholder. So we'll go ahead and proceed then with items B and E. This is a combined preliminary plat and request for a rezone. On the rezone, I just issue a recommendation. The city council makes the final decision. On the plat, I make the decision, although the preliminary plat could not be approved if the rezone was not first approved. And this is, of course, it's the pro-made construction Barker Ranch first edition plat for 206 single family lots. The order of procedure on this, as well as the other matters on the remainder of tonight's agenda, will be as follows. We'll hear first from the planning department. The planning department will provide a summary of the proposal. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to present. And then we'll open this up for public comment. And anyone who has called in or signed in may comment on the proposal. And on the remote hearings, we have not had difficulty with people being able to provide comment either telephonically or through the video line, but I typically will keep the record open for at least a day or two, just in case there was anyone who had wanted to comment on the proposal and it was not able to for whatever reason due to the remote nature of the hearing. So unless there are procedural questions, we'll go ahead and start with the preliminary plat, matter number 2021-001. And proposed rezone. That's matter number 2020-002. And Mr. Adams, are you presenting for the city on this?
I am presenting for the city on all items tonight.
Okay, well, why don't I go ahead and swear you in. If you can state your name for the record.
Jeff Adams.
And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. And I have reviewed the staff report on both the plat and the rezone, as well as the attached exhibits on that.
Very good. So for the benefit of our viewing audience, this is a rezone application for Barker Ranch First Edition. The applications for a rezone from RS1 to R1 zoning. The parcel is located approximately 1,000 feet north of Burns Road and about 1,300 feet west of Broadmoor Boulevard, including parcels 115-180-076 and 115-180-077. The site is currently zoned RS1, which is low density residential and is occupied by an agricultural crop circle. The site consists of 2 parcels comprising approximately 52.7 acres total. Applicant has applied to change the zoning designation of the 2 parcels from RS1, which is suburban, to R1, which is low density residential, to facilitate a concurrent application for a 209 lot single-family subdivision. I'd like to just add that the plat was resubmitted with 3 extra lots, went from 206 to 209 lots. Per PMC 25.40.050 subsection 1 development standards, the minimum lot area for all newly created lots in the RS1 zoning district is 10,000 square feet. Under the current RS1 zoning designation, the parcels have a potential for approximately 175 single-family building lots, taken into consideration dedication of approximately 25% of the lot area for required right-of-way. The R1 zoning district requires a 7,200 square foot minimum lot size, which translates to approximately 243 building lots. Applicant is proposing 209 lots, and that's the summary for the rezone.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adams. I do not have any questions for you. Is the applicant online?
We're here in person. They're here in person.
Oh, okay. All right, great. If whoever is representing for the applicant, if you could state your name for the record.
Good evening, this is Stephen Bauman.
And can you spell your last name?
B as in boy, A-U-M-A-N.
Thank you. And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. Is there anything that you wanted to add to the planning department's summary of your proposal?
There's not.
Okay. There are some conditions that are listed in the staff report on the preliminary plat. Did you have any questions or concern with any of those? There are 9 conditions in here.
Trying to get to that page just a moment here.
Pages 6 through 7.
Our representative is also here. Give me just a moment here. So John Federoff is our engineer of record on this project. He's coming forward also.
Okay.
So if you wish to swear him in, this would be that time.
Okay. All right. Mr. Federoff, if you could state your name for the record and spell that for me.
Yes, John Federoff. Last name is F as in Frank, E-T-T-E-R-O-L-F as in Frank again. And I'm with JF Engineering.
And you swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. And so was there anything that you wanted to add to this department's summary of your proposal? And of course, on that secondary question on whether you had any questions or concerns with the proposed conditions 1 through 9?
And then I guess the point of clarification, are we on the plat or on the rezone?
So this would be on the plat.
On the plat?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We do have, item 5 discusses if there's any existing water rights associated with the property, should be transferred to the city of Pasco as condition of approval. If there's no water rights available, then a property owner, in accordance with PMC such and such, shall pay the city in lieu thereof a water rights acquisition fee. We are working with South Columbia Basin Irrigation District at this time. They currently supply the property with water, and so there are no actual water rights with the property. But we have other methods to be able to provide water in lieu of paying the city. In fact, I believe the city does not even have irrigation service to this area or a plan to get service to this area. So we plan to work with South Columbia Basin Irrigation District and get irrigation water provided to this site for irrigation water.
Okay. And I think the way the condition's worded, it allows for that to happen, but if that does not occur, then the code structure and the code, the way it's structured, would address the issue, which provides for the water rights acquisition fee.
I would just certainly want that to be clear that if, with the city not able to provide irrigation water to this area, that we're not paying any fee or anything in lieu of when they are not able to serve the area.
Yeah, I can go back to the city on that, but the way I understand it is that if the city is providing water, then that fee applies. If you already have the water, then you wouldn't be paying the fee, but I can have Mr. Adams elaborate on that.
Yes, please.
Okay, any other questions on any of the proposed conditions? Looks like Fire Station 83 needs to be completed to serve the plat. That's condition 8. Are there any questions on that?
Just a moment here.
That's the LID.
I don't believe, and I believe fire station number 83 is operational at this time. Is that-
Okay, that
is
takes
that-
care of that.
Is that correct, Mr. Adams?
Mr. Adams, was that, did I hear you there in the background on those questions?
I didn't respond on that.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, I'll come back to you once the applicant's done here.
I believe that concludes our concerns.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Actually, Mr. Adams, why don't I go back to you before we open this up for public comment? Did I say anything incorrect about the water rights and how that's structured?
I believe that you're correct.
Okay,
We
all
can
right.
clarify that.
Okay, all right, so at this point, we'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone who has called in or signed in through the video link who would like to provide comment on this proposal? Mr. Adams, I don't see anyone. Am I missing something? Is there anyone from the public who wanted to comment this evening?
I don't see anybody online or here in the audience that wishes to address the body.
Okay. Well, let the record reflect that there was not anyone present online or in the audience who wished to comment on this proposal. I do not have any additional questions on this. I think we'll just keep the record open, I guess, through close of business tomorrow, just in case there was anyone who did want to comment and had trouble signing in. So through close of business tomorrow, May 13th, 5 p.m., any comments should go to the planning department. They will forward those on to me. And then combined, probably be just one decision, but it will include the recommendation as well as the decision on the plat. And of course, the rezone requires council approval. Will be then out within 10 business days from close of the record tomorrow. Any procedural questions on that matter?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll move to the matter C. This is a preliminary plat. I wonder if we should reorder. The preliminary plat might take a little bit longer. It's the special permit for the daycare center. That may be a quick one. Is there any, should we reorder that on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
agenda? Or Mr. Adams, would you prefer just to go ahead and proceed in the order outlined?
We can do the daycare.
Okay, let's go ahead and do the daycare because I don't think that will take very long. Mr. Adams, if you, as with the other proposals, I've reviewed the staff report and attached exhibits, but if you can provide a summary, that would be helpful.
Very good. So this is for the benefit of our viewing audience. This is for a daycare center in an office zoning district. The parcel is located at 1731 West Clark Street. And I'm just going to move our slides to that point. See what we're looking at. Okay, so as you can see on the screen here, it's on the corner of West Clark Street and 18th Avenue, about a block north of West Lewis Street. The property is currently zoned office, and it is about a quarter of an acre, 9,781 square feet. Applicant wishes to operate a daycare facility to be located at that address. Daycare facilities are considered community service facilities level 1, and community service facilities level 1 requires special permit review under PMC .200.020, subsection 4, unclassified uses. Daycares are typically located in or near residential neighborhoods. There's another fun to learn daycare center located north and west of the site. In fact, it is, I'm going to back up here. Caddy Corner on 18th and Bonneville. So this is the same group, and they're wanting to basically expand their use down to this new location. Pasco Municipal Code 25.185.170 subsection 3 requires 1 parking space for each employee and 1 space per 6 children. The proposed facility would accommodate up to 4 employees and 22 children, ranging in age from 18 months to 5 years old. And this is an update to the report in case somebody had downloaded a previous version of the report. Based on these numbers, the total parking requirement would be 9 spaces, and the applicant has indicated there are 9 on-site parking spaces for this facility. And that is what we have for the highlights.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adams. I do not have questions for you. Is the applicant online? I don't think I see the applicant, but Mr. Adams, do you see them?
I do not see them online.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and open this up for public comment. Is there anyone who has called in or is present in the hearing room who would like to comment on this proposal? I'm not seeing anyone. Mr. Adams, is there anyone that you've noticed who would like to comment?
Excuse me, it looks like we do have one person.
Oh, okay. All right. Is that the individual that just stepped up to the stand there?
No, that's me, Madam Chair.
Sorry, you're very small, so it's hard to
Hang on there, Jeff.
hard to see there. Whoever wished to comment, if you could speak up.
Yeah, this is Tony.
Oh, okay. If you could state your full name for the record,
Tony Lozano.
and could you spell your last name?
L-O, Z as in zebra, A, N as in Nancy, O.
Thank you. And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you. So what did you want to add comment-wise this evening?
I really don't have anything.
Oh,
I just
okay.
want to state my presence.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Lozano.
Bye.
Was there anyone else who wanted to provide comment this evening? Okay. Mr. Adams, I assume that's everyone, correct?
That's everybody.
Okay. Let the record reflect that there was no one else present who wanted to provide comment this evening. So my decision on this special permit will be out we'll keep the record open through close of business tomorrow, so May 13th, and then my decision will be out within 10 business days of that. Okay, so let's move to the final item on the agenda. This would be preliminary plat. It's matter number C. This is the Wernet Ridge plat for 56 single-family lots. I've reviewed the staff report on that. There was a letter from the applicant's legal counsel that I did take a look at. There were some photos which came in today. One of the power lines, and then another photo of Tract A. And then there were also, I have received a couple public comments on this. One was from a Mr. Rowe, and then one was from a Mr. La Riviere. So Mr. Adams, if you could go ahead and provide a summary of this proposal.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. Again, for the benefit of our viewing audience, this is preliminary plat 21.
Jeff.
Mr. Adams, I can't hear you. If you could
I've just unmuted.
speak a little louder. Okay, yeah, you might have been away from the microphone.
Thank you. For those, for the benefit of those watching, this is preliminary plat 2021-004 Wernet Ridge. The site is adjacent and west of Road 52 and south of Wernet Road. parcel 118-621-028. The site is currently zoned R1, low-density residential, and is vacant. It was recently annexed into the city. The site contains approximately 13.7 acres. Applicant is proposing to subdivide this 13.7 acre parcel into 56 single-family lots. The lots range from 1,020 square feet to 10,013 square feet, with an average lot size of 7,322 square feet. The proposal would be consistent with the development standards of the R1 zoning district per Pasco Municipal Code 25.45.050. Municipal water is available to the parcel in Road 56 and Burnett Road. Applicant is working with the city engineers to bring sewer service to the site. As you've mentioned, we've received a letter from counsel of the applicant. The applicant, J.J. Kelly Construction, objects to conditions 1, 2, 8, 10, and 12 for the reasons set forth in the letter. Number 1, attached to this letter as Exhibit A is a true and correct copy of the modified preliminary plat of Warnet Ridge, which contains configuration and design request by applicant. The only modification from prior versions was to eliminate the southern stub of Road 54 solely to serve property to the south. And then they say that city staff has agreed to eliminate this requirement in the staff report submitted to the examiner. That is a quote from the letter. Pasco Municipal Code Chapter 21.15.010 Subsection 1 specifies that streets shall normally continue as an extension of existing streets unless good planning dictates a different solution, and street patterns shall take into consideration access needed to develop adjacent properties. Unfortunately, Exhibit A was neither vetted nor approved by the city. Exhibit A was not shared with staff prior to publishing the staff report, and the requirement was removed based on submittal of a plat conforming to the requirement. Pasco Municipal Code Chapter 21.15.010 Subsection 1 requires street patterns to take into consideration access needed to develop adjacent properties. As such, no special plat condition is required. Staff recommends approval of the original plat rather than the non-vetted plat submitted as Exhibit A. Item number 2 that they mentioned in the report, our client's understanding is, and I quote, our client's understanding is the plat is being processed with a city commitment to ensure sewer lines and infrastructure will be available in a commercially reasonable time frame. Staff agrees with the proposed condition, a formal development agreement be negotiated and made part of the record. Item 3.
So if you could you, I'm not sure I was clear on that. It sounds like the city is working on a development agreement with the applicant, but that's not been finalized. That's what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
And what you just said, were you proposing language in lieu of 10, or I wasn't clear on that?
Applicant proposed that language in their letter.
Oh, okay.
And
So you're comfortable with the language that they proposed in the letter?
We are comfortable with a formal development agreement to be negotiated and made part of the record.
Well, it wouldn't be part, if it's, not my record, but you mean that is, and I mean, when the applicant comes on board, I'll have Mr. Fickus, I think, clarify that, the language on that and what's meant there.
Okay.
But Mr. Adams, you can go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. Item number 3, and again I quote, city staff continues to recommend that any and all overhead power is required to be rerouted below ground. Parent C, tentative plat approval condition number 8, close parent, there's no basis in fact or law or support it for this plat, close quote. Staff would respond by PMC 21.35.100 subsection 1. All utility lines serving the subdivision, including but not limited to power, telephone, and television cables, shall be installed underground. Adequate easements shall be provided for all such utility lines which will not be located within the right-of-way. And RCW 35.96.030, conversion of electric and communication facilities to underground facilities authorized, local improvement districts, special assessment. Every city or town shall have the power to convert existing overhead electric and communication facilities to underground facilities pursuant to RCW 35.43.190. Where such facilities are not so owned or operated, every town, city, or town shall have, or every city or town shall have the power to contract with electrical and communication utilities as hereinafter provided for the conversion of existing overhead electric and communication facilities to underground facilities. And so, as far as we can tell, there is some authorization in both municipal and state code to underground facilities.
Do you have any comment about whether or not in this situation, the applicants indicated that it would be, the utility has told them they can't be undergrounded. Do you have anything further on that?
I did not receive the letter that was sent to applicant, but I did read it in the letter that council sent us. And it says, per our conversation on the overhead transmission lines on Road 52, we do not install or relocate transmission lines under the ground. We currently do not have any of our transmission system underground. The costs and logistics are out of our scope of operations. These lines are different than normal 12.47 kilovolt overhead distribution lines that we have around town. These transmission lines are 115 kilovolt lines that connect our substations around town. We do not allow these lines to be installed underground. Please let me know if you have any questions. Close quote. Staff feels that the onus of justifying overhead lines with sufficient and appropriate data rests with applicant. And then item number 4, city planning staff, and let's see, I think I'm quoting here. City planning staff in condition number 12 has requested justification for tract A, a 15-foot rectangle along the southern boundary of the plat. Attached here to as Exhibit D is a subdivision guarantee for the property, etc. The applicant's Burnett Road plat will not have access or use tract A for any purpose, and the neighboring owners to the south requested this accommodation in order to support the plat. I've spoken briefly with city council on this, and I think that the provision of that tract A to the property owner to the south would be appropriate. However, we need to do it through a different means, likely a boundary line adjustment, rather than a dedication of tract A, or at least there needs to be a provision for the transfer of that ownership.
So you agree, the city agrees that it's not needed for this plat?
Right. We just need to make sure that it's done correctly.
The method is appropriate.
And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to our counsel, Mr. Jeff Briggs. I think he's online.
I just wanted to touch on a few issues. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Just go ahead.
I just want to cut, Mr. Briggs, you're offering just legal argument. I don't need to swear you in or anything. Is that correct?
That's correct. And for the record, Jeff Briggs of Kurt Ferguson Law Group for the city. Mr. Adams touched on these issues pretty well. I just wanted to point out, clarify a couple things. I think a development agreement is a great idea. I don't know that it would be an appropriate thing to put on a preliminary plat as a condition. I don't know that we could require the city to enter into a contractual arrangement to provide sewer. However, I do agree with Mr. Fickus as well I think page 4 of his letter, he stated that applicant understands sewer availability is a requirement for approval of the plat. We certainly agree that it's a requirement. I think based on the record here, it shows that the city's making efforts to, provide, sewer to this plat, but I don't know that we can necessarily make that requirement that the city provides sewer for the, for the plat approval, but it sounds like that's the direction it's headed.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sure. There are definitely limits on my authority on in terms of kind of the wording on all of that. I would think that, I mean, you'd have to have some language that requires that sewer is provided. But at the plat at this point, I mean, it's either approval or denial, or you have, the right conditions built in.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's probably going to be something like a latecomers, either a city latecomers, or that's what it looks like at this point. It's probably how it's going to turn out. As far as the electrical utilities going underground, I did see that email, and that's concerning. That it sounds like Franklin PUD does not want to bury those utilities underground. We're kind of bound by our code. That's sort of our position, is that we require that these utilities be buried underground. Obviously, if this is some sort of factual legal impossibility to bury them, we don't want this to be a de facto denial, because but for the burying of the utilities, he could have his plat. So maybe putting something in there that we prefer them to be buried, but in the event that that's some sort of impossibility based on, I think we need a little more, because we just have that email that indicates it's sort of their policy, but is there some sort of regulation there, some federal regulation, or what's going on there? Or is it just impracticable to do it? But we're on board with that.
I'm thinking I think I might leave the record open a little bit to allow that issue to get a little bit further addressed. I did take a look at those photos. It didn't look like your standard power line. So if they were kind of more transmission, you probably wouldn't underground them. But it seems like a little bit more factual development on that might be useful.
And Jeff hit the nail on the head, Jeff Adams. On this 15-foot track, I just don't know that our code allows us to create, we don't have a definition of track. I mean, it's a sub-definition of what a lot would be. We can't create a fee simple lot that doesn't meet our zoning standards, which require, every lot has to have a dwelling unit on it. So we'd essentially be creating this 15-foot strip that's a fee simple buildable lot. My suggestion would be that probably should have been a boundary line adjustment maybe before the plat, but we're willing to work with them. But I don't think we could have a scenario where we're creating this sort of fee simple strip that we're calling an easement. I just think it's problematic to do so when our development standards require a minimum lot size, minimum lot width, that any lot created be used to build a single family dwelling. It just doesn't seem to fit that mold.
Maybe there's a question for the applicant. I'm just wondering if it's possible to just redraw it and say, well, this is not part of the plat, but I guess you need the BLA, because otherwise you do end up perhaps with a separate, I need some more facts on exactly what's going there on the ground. But
right. And I appreciate Mr. Fickus being pragmatic on this, and trying to resolve this. It's one of those things. It's kind of just, those are the rules. We just don't want to create a fee simple lot here that is non-conforming as a result of subdivision. The last issue on the traffic impact analysis, this one took some digging for me, but where this is coming from, it's not. It was in the MDNS. I agree with Mr. Fickus, but it's coming from Pasco Municipal Code 1410-010, where the city has adopted a modified version of WSDOT standards. They have the City of Pasco design standards that are adopted. They're on the website. And in those standards on page 8-4, there's an indication that there is a requirement for any infrastructure improvements, roadway improvements, for those to have a traffic impact analysis in the event that they're generating more than 25 peak hour trips. And, attendant to that would be any mitigation resulting from that. So it's really one of those scenarios where you have, this is a supplemental regulation, so we wouldn't really need SEPA to impose that requirement.
I think you'll have already used SEPA because the way, I take a look at the MDS and it's in there. It hasn't been appealed, so I don't have jurisdiction over that condition, which is SEPA and part of the project, regardless of whether it's in the plat or not.
Right, but yeah, and the project and the condition on the MDNS would merge to the permit, right? At the,
Right,
you know,
correct.
So yeah, and that's fine, and that's fine. And that's really all I have. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Fickus, and I'm sure he'll agree with me 100% on everything.
All right.
That's
So
exactly what's gonna happen.
Well, I think, so the city's done now, so we'll turn this over to the applicant. Mr. Fickus, I assume you're presenting legal arguments, so I don't need to swear you in. I didn't know if you were planning to go first.
Madam Examiner, I'd appreciate if you'd swear me in. I don't see my client Jeff Kelly registered, and he didn't really feel comfortable speaking. So I'd go ahead and swear me in, and I may be a combination of facts and arguments.
Okay, if you could state your name again for the record.
My name again is Mark Fickus, Fickes, at 405 East Lincoln Avenue. I am the attorney and authorized agent for the applicant, J&J Kelly Construction.
And you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. Again, this is a pretty non-controversial plat, 57 lots on 13.7 acres. The property's been properly annexed and zoned, and the primary disagreement with staff and city legal has to do with various conditions. And I'm going to take them in a mix of an order. Let me start with the first one that surprises me a little bit, and that's the requirement. The city staff apparently wants to go with the original configuration with the stub out to the south of road, I think it's road 54. I apologize, I didn't mean to put words in the staff's mouth. I still object to that condition on behalf of the applicant, as it's not justified by the traffic from this plat. But we were provided a preliminary copy of a staff report on April 28th that actually had, as item number 14, it said provision shall be made for access to parcels to the south. On the staff report that the city submitted to the examiner, they removed that. I assume based on discussions with us that they no longer needed the road stubbed out to the south, which goes basically to nowhere. The examiner, as you know from other plats, I briefed this issue before, the city has, it can't legally require the stub out to roads to benefit property not served by the plat or not necessitated as a direct result of the plat. And my argument would be on the standard Nolan-Dolan analysis in the Burton case, which you're familiar with from prior briefs that I filed, that southern stub would be inappropriate. Again.
I mean, when Mr. Adams was presenting, he did reference the code sections which require that plats be interconnected. And so you have these interconnecting streets. So you could have, I mean, it improves traffic flow and addresses kind of the impacts of a development if you do provide for this and allow traffic to kind of circulate through the city. Because the old way of doing plats is everybody you have these kind of cul-de-sacs and then the traffic would go in and then but you have much better circulation. I think that's what the city's been trying to do, is disperse the traffic a bit.
No, I'm very familiar with their street connectivity ordinance and the city staff's preference for gridded streets, but developers, as you can understand, don't always like this one. The stub out to the west to road 56 is certainly road B is appropriate. We have no problem with that one, but there is no showing by the city that road 54 is going to be extended to the south. It'll never be built. It doesn't connect to anything, and this one's not needed. The other thing, I'm going to tie in another condition to that. Again, I think it's the city's, the development standards don't save the city from a standard Nolan-Dolan analysis. I don't think they can require the stub out unless they think that road is going to be built in the next 6 years under the traffic improvement plan. The other thing is, let's go with that. I'm tying it to the easement. That property would go across the Hammerstead property. By the way, it is common on Tract A. I'm talking about the 15-foot southern strip. It's done all the time. When you use the term Tract A in a plat survey, it's done for common areas like ponds, stormwater ponds. We do it all the time. And lots designate, if it's designated as a lot, I agree with Mr. Briggs that it would have to meet city standards, but there are non-development lots done on plats all the time. I've done it over 35 years. The reason we want this is, yes, we want to create Tract A that will give a legal description we can convey and merge with the Hammerberg property to the south. It won't be built on, it can't be built on. We understand that we'll have to do a short plat exemption application and a simultaneous merger according to the code, but we would appreciate, the easiest way to do that is to create the tract on this plat. Talk to any surveyor, and there are common area tracts that aren't built on, that's all the time. So we believe it is appropriate to create it. That property will be conveyed, and the Hammersteads don't want roads going through. That was, that's there, and there's utilities located within that easement that cannot be moved. So it is not part of the plat. Tract A is appropriate. It doesn't mean it's buildable, and my client would commit to transfer it to the property owner to the south. Again, easement tracts are done all the time in plats.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with tracts being used for plats, but typically they become then part of the plat, and they're used for some purpose in the plat. This is a little different because it wouldn't be used for the plat at all. And I guess the city's concern is having a lot that's substandard rather than being, I guess a BLA would probably, like before this came to me, would probably have been the easiest way, I assume.
Yeah, we can't do it now because we don't want to have to come in and amend the plat to do a BLA and amend the plat to transfer a 15-foot strip. So could it have been done before the plat was filed? With hindsight being 2020, probably yes. But now I think the best way, and the way my client and his surveyor at Harms Engineering has proposed, is to create the tract. We could put it, easement tract, not part of the plat. We'd be happy to label it appropriately, and then it's a lot that can be conveyed and merged, to basically create a flag lot for the Hammerberg property.
Does your client have any objection to requiring, just go ahead and imposing a requirement that there be a boundary line adjustment, so you don't just have this parcel out there that doesn't meet substandard and all that?
No, I think that would be appropriate, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, 'cause it seems to me there's a way to structure this so it accomplishes what everyone wants to accomplish. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out the right legal structure.
I would agree with that analysis. So again, I'll leave it again. I don't think the stub road to the south is appropriate. And again, I had thought that the staff had removed that requirement. Again, it was in a prior staff report and it was removed for this one. And I apologize for the late submittal, but we just got the staff report like Friday before my Monday letter, so I don't have time to respond other than what I did.
I'm keeping the record open anyway on this. I think having some additional information from the parties on the stub road issue as well as electrical line, and for the parties to take a closer look at that would be helpful.
Yeah, now the electrical line, again, let's deal with that condition. Number 8, I'm sort of surprised. I mean, I understand it's common to have a condition that electrical utilities be located underground, and almost every city has similar development standards to those in Pasco. But this one, if you look at that picture I sent in number 2, these are 115 kilovolt main lines. They cannot legally be located underground, and I'm a little disappointed. I know the city was aware of this issue for at least a week to 10 days. A phone call to the Franklin County PUD, who's the sole provider responsible for providing utilities, could do it. My understanding is the voltage and size of the lines preclude it. These are main overhead transmission lines, and maybe for $1 bazillion, I mean, and it's physically possible. So I'd like some language that if it's precluded by Franklin County PUD policy, unless the city wants to litigate with them, I don't want to litigate with them, unless it's precluded by, right? I'd like it if it's commercially impractical or precluded by Franklin County PUD policy, that requirement be removed. My client's not trying to take any shortcuts. They were just told you can't do it. So
based upon what you've submitted, Mr. Fickes, does appear to me, at least what I have so far, is that it probably would be impracticable to put them underground, but I'd like a little bit more on that. And if it is impractical, then either the condition goes away or it's just reworded to say if it's.
Do you need something from me? I would appreciate it if the city would simply make a phone call to Mr. Aaron Gonzalez. It's not that hard.
Yeah, I just want to give the city an opportunity to, if they had, it sounds like they were okay with perhaps removing that if the facts kind of proved out as the applicant had submitted. So if the city could take a quick look at that, I think that would be helpful. But I suspect the situation is pretty much what you're saying. But we'll.
I think so, based on the size and voltage of the lines. If it was normal power poles.
Yeah, no, they don't look like normal power poles, at least in the photos. So.
Yeah. And by the way, photo 2 is the actual one. There are wood poles, but they're the same main lines. So one of those was a nearby one that I didn't realize it. But it's photo number 2 of that is the actual photo of the lines adjacent to this plat. All right, and turning to the last 2 conditions we have problem with would be 1 and 2, which are basically the same conditions. They're the TIA analysis, and I couldn't find it. I appreciate Mr. Briggs' quotation, but I still don't know whether that justifies a traffic impact analysis for every plat. I don't think that's legal under SEPA. And my main problem, Madam Examiner, and I've argued this to you before, but I've never had to force it to a ruling because my clients have complied. The city is doing a couple of things wrong, and I'm just going to be honest with them, and it's both on the traffic impact analysis and some of the things they said on sewer. The city has a duty under statute and its own concurrency ordinance. If you're going to approve a plat, this plat has to be concurrent. That means adequate traffic facilities have to be present and water and sewer. They either have to be present right now or they have to be available at the completion of the development. You can't legally approve a plat without having adequate roadway improvements, water, and sewer. And I've never had, Pasco's the only one I deal with, and I do land use throughout Eastern Washington, that seems to postpone things that should be done up front to a later stage. Now, turning to the traffic impact, I understand, by the way, full mea culpa, my client didn't realize that they had to appeal that. I wish he would have timely appealed that. But if it's an illegal condition, it doesn't make it any more legal. If that condition was I need to pay Rick White $10 million, it doesn't make it legal. As you can appreciate, you can't postpone traffic review till all the appeal periods have run and SEPA's done. It's a SEPA condition. It's a SEPA-based.
I mean, I think there are two separate things here. One's the traffic impact analysis, and that is a SEPA condition. I don't have jurisdiction over that. But then there is that second question is what comes as a result of that. It's certainly the.
And by the way, those are expensive studies, and they take a long time. I actually have talked to the city engineer at Pasco, and their best case is 3 to 5 weeks. And again, if they come back and say I need to, contribute right away, or there's a signalized intersection operating a level of service below, what do? Come back and do the whole thing over? And by the way, my appeal period runs after your decision 21 days later. What if I don't like something in the traffic impact analysis? Does my client have to eat $1 million offsite mitigation fees? It's wrong. The city needs to start doing this up front.
It would definitely be preferable to me to have the traffic impact analysis up front. I think that's it's easier on my decision making. I do under SEPA, I do think you can have studies that come after. I can't remember if it's the Moss case or whatnot. So I think you can do that. Definitely, it would be helpful to have it up front, though.
It would, and and again, I'm going to point to on both these issues. I know Madam Examiner understands the concurrency concept that came in about his GMA, and Pasco has an okay concurrency ordinance at PMC 1236 et sec. And again, the concurrency review has to be, it says in PMC 12.36.070, the concurrency review shall be included as part of the city's preliminary plat review process. And again, I have the same issue on the requirement for sewer. Having the reason my client objects to condition number, it's number 10 on the sewer, is that my client has no control. The city has promised to bring sewer to the site under the annexation and rezone, and it's the city's and examiner's duty to find this plat concurrent. And I just thought that language was too open. We need to tighten up the language. Now, by the way, I'm happy to negotiate a development agreement with Mr. Briggs and the city. In fact, my client's been working informally with many members of the city staff, and they've been great, by the way. My client, but he's starting to get worried that nothing's happening, and he's going to have, a multi-million-dollar plat, and if the city says, sorry, I lost my funding or the sewer line's in, that's huge. So I would at least like a finding from the examiner, some type of language that the plat is concurrent based on the city's promise to bring sewer to the boundary line of the property within a commercially reasonable time frame. And maybe with some language, I know the examiner doesn't have jurisdiction. You can't force the city to enter into a development agreement. That's a different animal, but the plat has to be concurrent, and postponing, my client has nothing without sewer to this property.
I think I am kind of limited on what I can do. I mean, I do have to have a finding that the project is adequately supported by infrastructure, or can be. And so it can't be just a blanket approval. There does have to be some language on the provision of sewer utilities.
So just
I can't force an agreement. I know there's some challenges there, it sounds like.
But I provided, attached to my letter is information from the city. And by the way, I don't think the cities, I would love to hear from Mr. Adams or Mr. Briggs or Dave Zabel or Rick White or Dan Ford if they're listening. I just would love a commitment that they're going to have agreed to bring sewer to the site within a reasonable time frame, just to make sure that this plat is in fact concurrent, and that my client's not, spending millions of dollars for nothing if something happens. Now, I think we're going to be able to work it out with the city. We just haven't been able to do so. And by the way, the discussions have been ongoing for over a year, because I participated in some early ones. But so that
it does sound like there is
that
some
condition
planning.
needs to be tightened up.
Yeah, there is some planning that needs to happen, and definitely I have to have some language on the provision of sewer, whether it's this wording or some other type of wording. I have to have something in there on that. I am keeping the record open, like I said. I think this is one of the issues that if the parties could work a bit together on, or provide me a little bit more detail, that might be useful. So that's.
I'd be happy to talk to the city attorney. And that, by the way, that's the other part of the problem. I know Pasco planning staff gets incredibly busy, but these issues come on with 4 days notice before the plat. I mean, my client literally called me and said, Mark, what do I do? There's not as much communication as sometimes we would like. So I'd be happy to talk to Mr. Briggs, and I may submit some alternative language, but
Yeah, to the extent that parties can coordinate on all that, that helps me. So that would be greatly appreciated.
although sometimes you have to make tough decisions. Sometimes you have to say no to something.
I like it when it's made easier, but that certainly is not always the case.
Understood.
All right. Anything further right now?
I think that's all I have, other than reserving some time for rebuttal if there's some
Okay.
other comments that
Why don't we
come
go
up.
ahead and- Sounds good. Let's open this up for public comment, although I don't think I see anyone who has called in or signed in. I don't know if anyone's present in the hearing room. As I noted earlier, there were a couple of public comments that came in, and I did review those.
Madam Examiner,
Adams, is there anyone who wishes to comment?
Madam Examiner, Jeff Kelly is in the audience,
Oh, okay.
and I think you would like to speak.
Okay.
And we have one other
Mr.
person
Kelly, if you could state your name for the record?
Go ahead and go up to the podium.
Jeff Kelly.
Good evening, Mr. Kelly. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And could you spell your last name for me?
Kelly.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Mark covered all of the conditions that we had concerns, except for I forgot about the condition. I don't have the number of it in front of me, but it's the fee for in lieu of water rights. And listening to Stephen Bauman argue his case with their plat, we also have irrigation water from Franklin County Irrigation that will be provided for this plat. And so I was wondering, do we have to pay that in lieu of water rights fee because we already have irrigation water? That's
Yeah,
a
and
question.
I suspect the condition is worded very similar to the one on the last plat that I had asked about. So again, my understanding of this condition is if that you do have the water rights, then there's no fee, but if you don't, then there is the fee. And that's the way I'm reading this condition. I think that's how it's been structured. But I'll let Mr. Adams comment on that if there's anything different.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, anything else or is that all?
That's it.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right. Well, thank you, Mr. Kelly. So I assume there's no one in the audience as a public citizen who wanted to comment. Is that correct?
We have one other person.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to see people are attending in the hearing room.
This is my preferred technology.
If you could state your name for the record.
Which way should I look?
I can't see you particularly well. If you look the way you just did, yeah, I can say you're actually facing me, so maybe that's the
Okay.
best. Yep, if you could state your name for the record.
Julie Willingham, Willingham.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Washington?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, first, I see I should have done more homework. I'm a little overwhelmed by what I heard here, but I live at approximately Road 52 in Argent. I've lived there about 8 years, and I came partly, I think you may have discussed it, but I'm still not sure where traffic is going to go from this subdivision to basically get out of Pasco, because the options are to go, well, north or south on Road 52, it looks like, which Road 52 already gets a considerable amount of traffic. Apparently it was originally intended as an arterial. The speed limit is 35 miles an hour. People easily travel 45 on there as it is, and it's a narrow street. Both roads 48 and road 56 are much wider, but the speed limits are lower. So my concern is where the traffic is going to peel out of this subdivision to get onto the freeway or get onto Court Street, for example.
Okay.
And that's probably where I should have done some homework and could have found this out.
Well, I'm going to be keeping the record open, and that's open not only for my questions for the applicant and city, but it's also open for citizens. So if you have any follow-up on that, please submit that to the planning department. I haven't decided on the deadline for that, but it'll probably be at least another week, so.
Okay, because I was thinking that's probably, 56 houses is probably going to generate, I'm going to guess 125 cars, since most houses have 2 cars now. And I was concerned about where all that traffic is going to go. And in being here, listening to everything that happened, there's also the construction traffic, and I'm concerned about where that traffic will be going, because it sounds like you guys have talked a lot about Road 56, but not so much about Road 52. It sounds like either the sewer or the water is at Road 56 and Warnett. And so I'm assuming that construction will move from that intersection onto the rest of the plat.
I'll let the applicant and Mr. Adams follow up on the traffic if they wish to do so.
Okay, and yeah, I just kind of wanted to comment that that's an awful lot of traffic to go down a long skinny road that has no area to walk. And yeah, that's about it. I lived about 200 feet from one of those power poles. They're about 6 feet in diameter at chest height above the ground. And there's one on Road 52 just west of, on Argent, just west of Road 52. And there's another one just like it on Court Street in the same location. And yeah, that'd be really interesting to see those get buried underground.
Thank you for that clarification.
I guess I just basically had a lot of questions and not so many comments, but I'm glad that I came anyways. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you, Ms. Willingham.
You're welcome.
Mr. Adams, was there anyone else in the audience this evening?
Nobody else in the audience?
Okay, all right. Let the record reflect that there was not anyone else who wanted to provide testimony this evening. So I think at this point, we'll turn it back to the applicant. Mr. Fickus, if you wanted, I didn't know if there was anything that you or Mr. Kelly wanted to add.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. I appreciate Mrs. Willingham's comments. It sounds like she's not opposed to the plat, but concerned about traffic. Again, my understanding is the trips per day from the plat, which are listed as in the findings prepared by staff, that the existing road system is concurrent. That the trips per day, AM and PM peak hours, and will not dilute level of service on any road or intersection below the level of service adopted in the city's comprehensive plan. Again, another reason why traffic is better to be analyzed up front. I still, don't know what the examiner is going to do with regard to the traffic impact analysis. If one can be done quickly on a cost-effective basis, that might be something our client can work with the city. But again, I continue to believe that if it can't result in plat denial, it can't result in conditions that would be, quote, major changes. That would require a do-over. But if a traffic, and all a traffic study does, as you know, is distribute the generated trips per day under ITE trip generation figures through the road system, and it would answer some of Ms. Willingham's questions, hopefully. Again, the city needs to start doing its traffic analysis up front. It just does. So that would be my only comment. Again, we believe that this plat meets all the requirements in PMC 2125 for approval. Staff's done a good job on the report, other than adjusting some of the conditions. And I guess I'd reserve the right. I may be talking to Mr. Briggs and may be suggesting some slight variations of some of the conditions that would help the examiner draft her decision.
And Mr. Fickus, like I mentioned to Ms. Willingham, I was thinking about a week. Would that work for you all, or do you all need more time? That would put it at, see, today's the 12th Wednesday, so maybe next week Wednesday.
That would work for me, Your Honor.
Okay, so we'll I think May 19th probably is what we'll keep the record open to. So let's see, Mr. Adams, Mr. Briggs, was there anything that either one of you wanted to add?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Mr. Briggs, anything else?
I would just like to thank the developer for providing this urban infill. I mean, it's nice to see that in this area. I think that type of growth is appropriate for this area. So I know usually focusing on, our points of disagreement, but I do think this is a good development for the area. So if we can iron out these relatively minor details, we'll have a viable project here.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I think we'll keep, like I said, we will keep the record open for a week through Wednesday, May 19th. And that, of course, is for not only the applicant and the city, but also for any citizens who wanted to comment or had questions. They can ask staff about the proposal. Any comments should go to the planning department by close of business next Wednesday, and then those will be forwarded on to me. And to the extent that the applicant and the city can iron out the concerns over conditions and have language pulled together, that would be great. But I know sometimes that doesn't always happen. So, but either way, I definitely encourage the parties to coordinate on that. And then, of course, after my decision's out within 10 business days of close of the record next week. Any procedural questions from anyone?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I think that is it. That is the last item on the agenda. Mr. Adams, was there anything else that I needed to address this evening?
Nothing from us.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for your participation. We are adjourned.
Thank you.